Okay, today we are playing a game on the Horizon Lunar Colony. We are in the Silver SR range, and we will be playing Widowmaker on attack and Ashe on defense. We are also on the console today, so consider yourself forewarned. Because we are in Silver, we will not worry about our team comp that much, because it doesn't really matter when people don't know how to play their heroes, yet team comps don't function correctly. Thereby, I've saved myself probably like 5 entire minutes of editing time. Tremendously good day for me. So let's go. So we've got to attack first. Not the most optimal grapple in the world, but I would be a liar if I said I haven't grappled into a few walls myself. So this is pretty depressing to look out here and see this kind of comp as Widowmaker. Widowmaker is not very good against bunker comps, so this is very depressing. But fortunately, Orisa does that, which makes it significantly easier to shoot the people in the bunker if the bunker just isn't there. So how about that? Widow's very bad at dealing with shield comps, unless you're on the kind of map where you're able to get like an angle where you can see around the shield somehow. Or the rest of your teammates happen to be very good at breaking bunkers, neither of which is usually very true. So, fortunately though, they just fucked up, so we don't have to worry about it. Reaper's dead. He was killing people in the kill field, in the kill feed, and the kill field, I suppose, which was a little scary, but not my fucking problem. It's been dealt with. So these people are never going to contest this objective, but they're coming out here anyway, basically just to feed, which is tremendous news for us. Our only healer is Batista. I was going to say Bastion for a second there. That would not be true. Our only healer is Batista, so will he look back at us? It's not looking good, but it's alright. We can just stand on this hacked health kit for a second. Tremendous. Alright, let's go shoot the bad man. So I believe Bastion changes to Soldier, which makes life easier for us, because Bastion is rather difficult to headshot, by all accounts. Soldier, I mean, he's not exactly easy to headshot, but easier than Bastion is. Bastion's head is just so weird, man. It's just so fucking weird. So, we did elect to continue stand here fighting, even though Reaper just teleported there. Reaper is not very far away from us. He could easily have Wraith form. We haven't seen him use Wraith form, so we should assume he has it, which means he can get to us very quickly, and we won't be able to shoot him when he's on his way here. So, and once he's right on top of us, well, Reaper definitely wins that fight. So we should have already been backing up, or been much more ready to back up, given where we just saw Reaper teleporting to a second ago, which was extremely close to us, which we're not a big fan of as Widowmaker. We don't like things being very close to us. That is not as optimal as it would be to just grab onto this hydroponic tank and shoot over the top of it. Basically, you know, grappling to ledges and then doing the boost is going to be pretty much the fastest way to get there as Widow, but the map, not all maps really have easy-to-use ledges to do that, but we got plenty of hydroponic tanks around here. So we've managed to build up infra sight, which is pretty helpful on a map like this, where there are a lot of corners to try and take advantage of. We go for the grapple, like, drop shot, it looks like. Very hard to get a drop shot from that angle. Would have rather just not tried at all, given the very narrow angle we would have through the doorway. Tremendous. If you're playing Reaper, don't do this. Like, he knows there's a Widow. He knows there's a Sombra. He knows these things. And Lord only knows what else could be up here, right? There could be a McCree up here now. There could be a Roadhog up here now. Who knows? And yet he just decides to teleport in full view of the entire enemy team. And, shockingly enough, he didn't survive! So now there's another Widow, which is very scary. Honestly, most of the time, unless you're dramatically better than the other Widowmaker, I'm of the mindset that it's just best not bothered with, if at all possible, because, you know, back in the olden TF2 days, we had a term for this where we would call it the weighted companion snipers, which is just that the two snipers were so preoccupied with fighting each other that the game just turned into a 5v5, because neither sniper was really accomplishing anything. They were just removing each other from the game by their presence, thereby becoming weighted companion snipers. A joke on the weighted companion cube, just in case. And Widow versus Widow, I find, easily turns into that also. So I've always been of the mindset that you're better off just not engaging with it unless you are dramatically better than the other Widowmaker. Or are just in a dramatically better position than her, like right there where she's just not looking at us and clearly doesn't know we exist. Significantly easier to win the fight in that situation. Not a very good grapple direction to go when escaping Reaper, even if the grapple, like just grappling into the ceiling, not great, but regardless, we were grappling towards his teammates as well, which is not good for a different reason. We shouldn't have been poking our face out while also that low health, because at that point, Widow wouldn't even need to get a headshot on us to kill us. I'm going back here to point out, very easy to tunnel vision when you're playing a sniper, given that you spend most of your time looking down a literal tunnel that has a piece of glass at the end of it. But there is a soldier looking at us right now, and for some time. He had time to fully reload in our field of view before we noticed him. You gotta look at the whole screen. You gotta avoid... He didn't actually reload. He just, like, ducked and then came back out again. I thought he was reloading. My bad. He was still in our field of view for a long-ass time, and we just didn't notice him. It looked like still not great. Hydroponic tank, grapple over the top of it, you get to ride the momentum and boost over. You gotta avoid tunnel vision. Just, like, look at the whole screen every couple seconds, you know? Just, like, take stock of the situation. So, a fairly scary bunch of people to be directly adjacent to. Junkrat just fucked that up, thankfully. Soldier, like, we just missed a shot. Like, we just shot right in front of Soldier's face. So, he knows who we're currently trying to get round this corner. And then he just does it anyway. And he gets got. Maybe he didn't notice the Widow shot go in front of his face, which is honestly far more depressing than if he just decided we were bad, you know? At least then you make a conscious decision to do it, rather than just, like, not noticing the fucking bullet go in front of your face. So I just saw a Hammond roll by. This is one of the most depressing pieces of news we could possibly receive as a Widowmaker, because there is close to nothing that we can do about Hammond. Because even Winston, you've got more options, like, to fight Winston as Widowmaker, because when he's jumping at you, you can shoot the guy in the head. Which is why some legitimate Winston tech is, like, spin around in the air as soon as you jump, so that you fly at them ass first, thereby not being possible to get headshot. Hammond, you have no such luxury. Hammond comes at you with no head model, so very upsetting. And if he pile drives you, you're gonna have to use your grapple to get away from him, because he robs you of your mobility. And at that point, Hammond's grapple comes up a hell of a lot sooner than yours, so, like, Hammond fucks Widow up in a lot of ways. Here, this is not a terribly good way to grapple, because we have put 0 distance between us and Hammond. He briefly loses track of us, but quickly regains it and just comes after us again. We could have grappled to the hydroponics tank behind us, boosted over the top of it, and then boom, we're out of there. Rather than remaining largely just next to Hammond. So I lied to you, I guess. We are about to play 30 seconds of Ashe on attack, rather than entirely Widowmaker on attack. I apologize, I did lie to you. Ashe has better options for dealing with Hammond, just by virtue of Coach Gun knocking the guy away more than anything else, and having more DPS just shooting into him than Widow would. Because Widow, you know, the Ashe's rifle fires a hell of a lot faster than Widow's does. So I don't really want to bother camping this Reaper coming around this corner right now, just because he could easily Shadow Step somewhere and get out of line of sight, and thereby we've been camping this corner for no reason, which would be the sensible thing for him to do, and thereby is the thing I would like to assume he is doing, because just him coming around this corner when he knows that we know is a good way to get shot in the head as you come around the corner. So I would rather assume that he is going to just Shadow Step away, and thereby we can do something more productive, like be shooting at that Junkrat that's jumping around like a fool. And I don't know what happened to the Reaper. Reaper was apparently still up there, it looks like, but bad things are happening. I'd rather just assume he shadow stepped away and do other, more productive things than my time, rather than hope that he did the stupid thing, which is continue to wait there and just hope we forgot he's there. But at the same time, we are in silver, so your mileage may vary. So now we're defending. It would be safe to assume that they are going to come at us with a Hammond, given that someone on their team clearly wanted to play Hammond a second ago. And now they are attacking, which is usually where Hammond is stronger. Oh look, here comes Hammond. He has been hacked by Sombra, thereby he is the saddest boy in the entire land. You know, the most sad hero to get hacked is very steep competition. We have a lot of heroes that are woefully sad to get hacked, but I think Hammond might be the saddest one, you know? But it is a steep competition, because we've got Diva, extremely sad, Reinhardt, extremely sad, Lucio, tremendously sad, Tracer, unbelievably sad. So many people are extremely sad to get hacked, but I think Hammond might be the most sad, just because he has the most stolen from him, you know? He can't use any of his about 27 abilities. Can't even take his head hitbox away anymore. There you go, there's your buff to Hammond. Let Hammond, when he's hacked, roll into ball form and just be unable to move. Because that would honestly likely improve his likelihood of surviving, rather than being able to scuttle around in basic form. If he could just roll into a ball and just take his head off the field, he might have better odds of surviving getting hacked right there, even if he couldn't fucking move. So there's a lot of people bouncing around different parts of the map. Junkrat's out there. Honestly, anytime somebody wants to go out into space and you're playing Ashe, that's a good way to get a kill on a guy, because you can just coach gun the guy from the other side of the fucking station, basically, and you are sending him into a long arc through space. He might not be able to get back off the edge, and even if he can, my man is moving through space so fucking slow, it is easy to shoot that man. So anytime somebody wants to fight you in space as Ashe, by all means, go fight that man. So I would have liked to just chuck the dynamite at him right here, because based off the way this boy's moved, he is not going down the staircase, he is tucking around that corner and still wants to go for us, so I would like to just chuck this dynamite at him, try and get him around the corner, whereby he is close to dead, if not fully dead. Definitely under a time constraint. And hey, look at that, he died. We got him regardless, but I would have liked to just done it immediately, because that boy jumped on top of that panel, so he wasn't going down that staircase. Anyway, so we killed him regardless. The enemy team not exactly making a great job of actually attacking us. To be honest with you, I don't feel like we've had very much to talk about this game, because we're largely playing two, like, aim-better heroes, and we aren't doing anything ridiculous, which makes it more difficult to have things to talk about. Because Ashe versus Widow is not a great battle to get into. I would not advise that one either. You just have to hit Widow more times than she has to hit you, which is always going to make things slightly unfortunate for you. It's like when Anna's try to fight Widow. You have to hit Widow 3 times. Widow has to hit you once. Don't do it if you can avoid it. But don't worry, also, we have questions in the email at the end, because I don't feel like we've learned too much, because it's always the thing with the very execution-heavy heroes. If you aren't doing something ridiculous, there's usually not a huge amount to talk about. Don't do this point's gone. Don't throw Bob in there. Like, Bob, it's not impossible for Bob to pull that one out, but when, like, your whole fucking team is down, as we can see, hey, it worked out, right? So that's me shown, isn't it? But when your whole fucking team is dead, this is not what should happen. That Bob should have been thoroughly dealt with. The enemy could have just, like, left the point briefly and then come back out if they've got truly nothing. It's the sort of thing that is not likely to... It is way less likely to work than it is to actually work. So even though it worked this one time, doesn't mean that it was the correct play still. Because by all accounts, it had low odds of working, and we don't want to go for the low odds plays if at all possible. Unless we have truly no other option. So I'm pretty sure I just saw Junkrat. I just saw Junkrat in the room to our right doing that. We didn't see him for too terribly long, but we did see him doing it, and we could have shot the tire before he had time to start moving with it, thereby largely dealing with the tire as Ashe, and if nothing else, killed him before he came out of Rip Tire. We should have just been endeavoring to die as fast as we possibly could have done, or left from that position instead, because it was fucked, bruh. Like, even, like, honest, discounting not seeing the Junkrat thing, it was pretty fucking over, dude. So, do not go up to this doorway, that's so scary to do. Because the enemy team have had so much time to start moving up here, and we are up here by ourselves. Like, don't even think about going up to that doorway. They've had so long that they have to be very close to that doorway. So, May did that. Good job, May. Really showed us. Very bad angle to try and do the dynamite from, because there's no way we get it through the door and be able to shoot it from that angle. Don't bother, just save the dynamite for a better opportunity instead. Hey, hacked Genji, that's a pretty sad one. Here comes Sombra. We decide to just start machine gunning at her. She's far enough away that I'd like to at least, and given she's not looking at us, I'd like to at least try and get one scope shot in before we start resorting to this, because if we can get a scope shot in on Sombra, that already alleviates most of the problem. Even if they're, like, pretty much right in your face, just try and get, like, one scope shot in first, because if you can get one scope shot in, that immediately reduces how much your machine gunning has to do, and if you can get a headshot in, you might not even need to resort to using the machine gunning at them. You might just be able to finish them off with the coach gun instead. I like to always go for at least, like, one scope shot, and then start going for it. Because you don't exactly lose much opportunity by going for a scoped shot or two, if you're feeling brave, and that just can dramatically cut down on how much you have to do after that. Especially if you get the headshot, you might not even need to use another shot from the rifle. So, you know, aim better. We missed a lot of shots on people that were making very, predictable movements. Don't be afraid to, like, take an extra half second to line the shot up, especially if they're moving in a predictable pattern, which is likely to be the case in lower SRs as well. Don't be afraid to just, like, take a little bit longer to line the shot up. It's just like Kratos' Top Boy in, Dawn of War. Accuracy over speed. You usually have longer to line the shot up than you think you do. So don't be afraid to just wait half a second. Again, I would have liked to take a scope shot at the boy before we started machine gunning him, you know. Things are still a little iffy at this point, so we decide to release Daddy right now. Daddy has dealt with the situation. Praise be Bob. Thank God for Bob, dude, or I'd lose, like, every single game of Ashe I ever played. Which I feel would also be true for most Ashe players. But the position we were in, we were pretty fucked as soon as Moira decided to go for us right there, unless we were going to react frame one to the danger and get the fuck out of there. Fucked up the coach gun. Such is life. I was very surprised to see that just, like, people have trouble, like, using the coach gun, generally speaking, to get places. Like, this seems to be a fairly common thing, even though it's basically just a big jump. Like, Sombra fucking got us. Like, she fucking got us. She, like, shot us real good. She hacked us, so we couldn't even get away from her. Such is life. But apparently it seems like very common. My friend started playing Overwatch again, and she was playing Ashe, and, like, she is having a lot of trouble getting the coach gun to go, and this seems to be the case for quite a few people. I was like, it's basically just a big jump, dude. What the fuck? I don't know. I guess it's just a little bit weird to think that you're using a gun to propel yourself up. Played a lot of, like, old video games, so I'm well acquainted with, like, rocket jumping, you know, which is easier. Well, no, not... This is easier than rocket jumping, is the way I meant to present that, but present it the exact opposite way. That's the worst, you know? It's really easy to get played the game as Ashe, and it starts off looking pretty good, but as soon as that happens, where you start, like, rapid firing and miss every shot, like, oh god, suddenly the play of the game doesn't look so good anymore, does it? So let's go over to the email and look at these here questions. First off, how do I look for good Bob brackets daddy opportunities? I sometimes look at the fight and go, yeah, this seems good. And the instant I press that button, it's suddenly the worst time for daddy to arrive and he gets clapped. So basically, the most common way Bob is used, and this is something I did all the time and still frequently do, is trying to use Bob as an initiation. Bob is a tremendously bad initiation because of how extremely predictable he is and how extremely easy he is to counter if the enemy team have their resources. Because if you try to use Bob to initiate and they've got just an Anna, well, Bob is doing fuck all for the rest of this fight unless someone happens to wake him up. Don't wake daddy. There's an old board game called Don't Wake Daddy, by the way, so that would be a good Photoshop right there. Bob is a bad initiation. He's too predictable, and too easily countered by certain things. So it is best to use Bob when somebody else is initiating, because as soon as something else is taking the enemy team's attention, Bob becomes dramatically more scary. So if you wait for just your tank to initiate a fight, and then send Bob in with the tank, that immediately makes the initiation much scarier, because they now have to worry about dealing with two things simultaneously. They might have already used some of their cooldowns, thereby removing some of the threat from daddy. And just, if two things are happening at once, they are less free to be shooting at daddy. So it is best to not use him as an initiation. You're better off waiting until a fight is being initiated or has already been initiated, because then the enemy team, they have to split their attention, and they will have used some of those cooldowns. Or have to think a little bit more carefully about how they use their cooldowns, because two things are happening simultaneously. That just makes it much harder for the enemy team to play around Bob, because two things are taking their attention rather than just Bob. So, basically, don't use Bob to initiate, wait until somebody else is initiating or has initiated, and then use Bob to follow that initiation. Because it makes their initiation dramatically stronger if Bob is following them in, and Bob initiating by himself is usually extremely sad. So that's the best advice I have for Bob opportunities, pretty much. Just don't use him as an initiation. Send him in when something else is taking the enemy team's attention. Next, I'd like to request aid on positioning. Not so much a question, but more like overall as the VoD goes on, how is my positioning? I feel I could learn a lot if you just comment either right at the end or the VoD goes on. To be honest with you, I didn't think that much issue happened positioning-wise, to be honest. Like, nothing really stood out to me. Other than just, like, when Reaper was wraith forming right in front of us, we should have been backing up way sooner than that. It is risky when you're defending on Horizon. I'm thinking about when we died to Moira close to the end there. It is risky to stand up there on Horizon as the defending team unless you know where the rest of the enemy team is. And, you know, the time that we decided to go stand up there was fine, to be honest with you. Like, we knew where pretty much all of them were. It just so happened that Moira was up there and found us while we were already low, so it's more of a unfortunate thing rather than anything else at that particular moment, but I will just say it is risky to go stand up there. Usually when you're defending on Horizon, a really good place to stand if you're a long-range hero is the balcony on the right-hand side instead, because it is just way harder for the attacking team to get up there, unless they have dive heroes or come around the side or the right-hand side. They get in the doorway, then they can come up under you. But, like, as long as you're watching over there, it is way easy to hold that position, and it is way hard for them to get to you. So that's usually a better place to stand when you're defending on Horizon, rather than the left-hand side. But, again, that wasn't really much of an issue that game. This game, to be honest with you. The one time Sombra got us, you know, Sombra got us. It would have been harder for her to get us on the right-hand side just because of the she was probably going that way, the way we went, just by happenstance and got us, so we made it easier for her. But she could have done the same thing on the right-hand side as well. Like, there's nothing to, like, that wasn't necessarily positioning specific, but she could have just easily been going that way and we just happened to go up there, which is less likely to happen on the right-hand side, thereby being safer. So that's usually true on Horizon, defending as a long-range hero, but overall, throughout the game, not much to say positioning-wise, to be honest with you. I felt like we largely were fine. I did notice while I was talking, by the way, This is one of the most woefully depressing cards I've ever seen in my entire life, and apparently the system could only find 3 things to put a card for, and this is one of the things it went for. How fucking depressing. So, there you go. Largely fine, but there's just some general advice for that map. You want to make it as hard as it is possible as it can be for the enemy team to get to you, basically, if you're playing a long-range hero. So, you don't really want to be somewhere that's kind of like a main thoroughfare for heroes like Sombra, because they're just likely to go that way, but if you're on the right-hand side, they are not likely to be going that way, which means they have to go out of their way to get to you, which is generally just preferable positioning-wise. So, there you go. Overall, fine. Next up, is there a better use for Venom Mine other than hurtling it deep down the enemy's throats every single time from across the battlefield? I get you can close off flanks, but I don't usually get flanked that often, and even if I do, I usually play with headphones so I can just hear the enemy instead. That is exactly my mentality on Venom Mine, is that I find it is usually best used just chucking it at the enemy team, to be honest with you, because you can just listen for flankers, right? That is exactly my mentality on the situation. Yeah, you can use it to block off flanks, but if you just listen for the enemy, that is less of an issue. The time where it is better to do that is versus Sombra specifically, because Sombra, if she's coming at you stealth, well, fuck, the first you know about it sound-wise is when she says something unstealthing behind you, and by that point, it can easily be too late. So, versus Sombra specifically is the time where it is best to use Venom Mine to block off flanks, because that makes it more difficult for Sombra. Specifically. All the other flankers you can listen for. It is sometimes worth placing it in weird places versus Pharah, also, because Pharah can flank you from weird locations, and you know, this is going to take some real weird positioning. I'm thinking about maps like Volskaya, where you could put it halfway up a wall some places, like on the left-hand side. You could put it like halfway up the wall around the corner, and then Pharah can bump into it as she's floating around the side. That kind of thing. So it can also be worth it versus Pharah, just because of the way she approaches you from, and when she gets to you, when she's flanking you, she's usually dropping down on you, which is also silent. So basically, it can circumnavigate those issues. The Pharah one, less so, just because of the sheer volume of options Pharah usually has available to her. And, to be honest, if you're in silver, like, Pharah ain't gonna be that predictable. And she's gonna be more predictable than that and just float straight at you, so, you know. But, versus Sombra specifically, it's good for, blocking off flanks. Otherwise, I think it is best just chucking it at the enemy team, dude. Because it's just doing a bunch of damage to people, it's putting infrasight on them, which can be helpful. It's making them lower, putting them lower, which is making it easier for you to pick them off, because you have to work less hard to do it. And if nothing else, it's giving you some ult charge, dude. Like, I think that is pretty much the best use for Venom Mine, because I think in an ideal world, you're wearing headphones and listening for flankers instead, thereby you don't need the advanced warning. It could also be good for some places like Volskaya, because if you think about, like, the right-hand side, you know, you can put it, if you're defending second checkpoint, I should be more specific than the right-hand side. Second checkpoint defending the right-hand side where the platforms float in from. You could put it, like, right around the corner as they come through that platform, and then you have massively advanced notice that they're coming that way. And it's pretty hard for them to get out from that way after they've already started going that way. So it can give you really far advanced notice on that map. And there are some places like that. So sometimes there are like really predictable flank routes people are going to take that you can place it like pretty far up the flank route and get just like massive notice ahead of time that they're coming. And because you've got infrasight on them with the Venom Mine, then that can make it easier to try and pick the flanker off before it ever even becomes an issue. Because if you're listening for them, they are going to be a lot closer to you than if you did that. And for some heroes, like Genji, it's possible for him to just, like, get up on the right hand, like, he can come through that way, get up on the right-hand side, just, like, crouch walk around the corner, go, like, tink, 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 and then dash through you, and you're basically already dead. So sometimes listening isn't enough. Certain maps like that, there are predictable flank routes people are going to take, and you can just get huge advance notice. So worth considering sometimes in situations like that as well. But I do think in an ideal world, it's not necessary. You can just be aware through other means and negate the flank like that, and use the Venom Mine just to do damage and get ult charge. So there you go. That was all the questions, I think. Yep, that was all the questions. So thank you very much for watching if you did. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to answer. If you felt I answered any of your questions from the email inadequately, please let me know and I will try to expand further. If you haven't already, you can join our Discord and ask questions more directly and have a conversation about them, or just shitpost with us. I've started streaming on Twitch Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, 8 PM EST till midnight EST. There's a link to the channel in the description. And if you managed to make it all the way through the video and somehow still enjoyed it, please like the video and subscribe for more content of middling quality in the future. And I hope you found the video helpful.